Hey guys, what's up? I'm Ershad from Mr. Phone, and today's product is a very interesting one. These are Xiaomi's latest pair of earphones, and this is actually a very interesting pair as well. I'll tell you why. Because this one right here in my hand is a pair of dual driver, in-ear earphones, and these are priced at just rupees 799. And why that is interesting is primarily because you don't generally get dual driver earphones under rupees 1000, and also it comes from Xiaomi, so I'm guessing the product should be good. So what I did, I actually tested them out extensively, and I have a few thoughts, and I have a few ideas on whether you guys should pick this up or not. And without wasting any more time, let's get down to our review of the Mi dual driver earphones. But before we move on, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever Mr. Phone puts out an awesome new tech video. Alright, so let's start off by talking about the design of these earphones. Now, what I like about the design is that despite having a plastic build, it feels pretty sturdy, and apart from that, I also like the fact that it's got a matte finish to it. So it looks pretty good according to me, and plus this blue color variant also is definitely a looker. Now obviously that doesn't matter much because these are in-ear earphones, and they'll go inside your ears and nobody's going to notice it, unless they actually take a close look at your ears. That's not going to happen. But regardless of that, this is a very clean design in my opinion. And apart from that, I like these angular tips, which means that listening to music on these earphones for long durations is never going to be painful. And I actually did experience that. I used these for 6 hours at stretch without any problem at all. Yes, I do listen to a lot of music, but at low volume, remember that. Now, apart from this, what I like about the earphones is also the fact that it's got a magnetic latch. Now, this has become very common in a lot of earphones that you get nowadays. Like, for example, even the Realme Buds 2 came with it. Now, unlike, something like the Bluetooth wireless earphones that you get nowadays, like the OnePlus Bullets Wireless 2 or, the Realme Buds Wireless, you of course don't get play pause function, so that'll be a little too much to expect as well, but regardless, you get this. Now, apart from that, you also get a braided cable now, which is damn cool. So braided means that it is going to be much more sturdier than regular earphones out there, so that's nice. And you get an L-shaped gold plated tip as well, which goes into your 3.5 headphone jack. That is if you have one on your phone. But I like this L-shaped tip. It actually makes it easier for you to hold your phone horizontally and not trouble you when you're using it. Now, I also like the Y junction, which is also connected to these two wires, of course, that connect to the left to the right housing. This is actually pretty sturdy as well. And of course, the right housing also has your inline remote plus mic. So the inline remote has a play pause function plus volume up and down, which can also be used to change tracks. This also can be used to invoke any voice assistant of your choice. This inline remote has pretty tactile buttons, no problem over there. Your basic stuff, everything, all grounds covered. Now, one of the things that I would have liked with the dual driver earphones is something like a cable loop that you get with something like the Realme Buds 2. Now, that's obviously cheaper, but I like the fact that you've got a cable loop as well on that, so which means that you don't have to buy a separate case or cover to carry this along with you. Now, talking about case and cover, what you get inside the box apart from the earphones themselves, of course, are one guide, and apart from that, you get 3 pairs of extra tips. All of them are silicone tips. Obviously, you don't get Comply foam or any kind of foam with this. That would be expecting too much for this price. But those silicone tips are fine, and you should actually find a good tip, good seal with one of the tips for your ears as well. It shouldn't be a problem as such. What I found is that the medium tip worked well for me because I generally use the medium one, so that was actually attached to the earphones themselves. So design wise, this is very basic, very well done. Not much to complain about except for the fact that I would have liked the cable loop, but this is pretty good in my opinion. Now, coming to the specs of these earphones. Now, dual drivers. Now, what are dual drivers? Essentially, your earphones come with drivers that drive the sound. For example, if you've taken a look at a pair of speakers, right? Now, when inside the speakers, you will see these cones that sort of push, push air to give you sound. Those are essentially drivers. Similarly, tiny drivers are inside these earphones as well. Now, instead of one driver inside each housing, you've got 2 drivers. What does this mean? Okay, now these 2 drivers that are there inside these housings are dual dynamic drivers. Now, generally when you have dual drivers, you get a dynamic driver and a balanced armature. Now, why do you get a different kind of driver? Now, dynamic driver is important for bass frequencies, and it does bass frequencies really well. So if you want a really good low end thump, dynamic drivers can be tuned well for low end thump. With balanced armature, the mids and the highs are pristine and clear, but balanced armature is generally more expensive. So in this price range, dual dynamic drivers obviously is something that you can only expect, and which is what Xiaomi has gone with as well. Now with dual dynamic drivers, the sound also changes and it becomes far more cleaner. I will come to that in a bit, but these are what they are, and you get the drivers in the combination of 8 millimeters and 10 millimeter size. Now, apart from that, it's got a rated impedance of 32 ohms, which means that it can be driven easily by most smartphones, most audio players, MP3 players out there. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Of course, this is a pair of affordable earphones, so they're supposed to do be driven by most equipment out there, so that's not a problem. And apart from that, as for the specs, you can expect these earphones to play from 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz, which is generally the bare basic standard for most earphones out there, which means that it can do very good low end and high end according to just the spec. Now obviously all of these specs don't matter. What matters is the sound signature and the tuning. So let me get down to that right now. Now talking about the sound signature of the Mi dual driver earphones, I've been testing them out extensively. The moment I got it, I sort of tweeted it out saying that this is not my scene. Now, why did I say that? I said that primarily because I found the bass to be boomy. So I expected it to sort of, become better over a period of time. Although that was not the case. The bass is actually pretty boomy. I'll tell you why the bass feels boomy. And if you are someone who kind of likes the boomy bass sound, if you listen to a lot of EDM, if you listen to a lot of loud Bollywood music, then these earphones are definitely gonna excite you. But in my opinion, they don't work as a very clean sort of analytical sound. Now that is not something that everybody wants either. So coming back to the bass. Now essentially you get good bass primarily because you've got two dynamic drivers on them. So obviously the bass is boosted. Now when you're talking about bass, there are also two kinds of bass. You've got the sub bass and the mid bass. The sub bass is the ones that are around the 20 hertz to 40 to 100 hertz frequencies. And the sub bass is what is causing the problem for me. The sub bass is definitely bloated and it bleeds into the other frequencies. What Xiaomi has done is actually tuned the mid bass so well that the thump and everything feels very tight. For example, in a song like AWOL Nation by Sale, these actually sound really, really good. But when you're looking at something like Acid Rain by Lon, and the sub bass is actually very, very heavy out there, and that sub bass sort of bleeds into the other frequencies and kills the whole excitement of me listening to the whole song. Having said that, if you listen to a lot of acoustic music where you have mids and mostly mids and a little bit of highs as well, then the Mi in-ear earphones do well. I mean these earphones do well. Now apart from this, what I like about the sound signature is that it's mostly clean and pristine, and what I like about it is that it does get muddied, especially when there's sub bass involved. But if there is no sub bass involved, then it sounds pretty clear. But in most situations there will be sub bass involved. It's not going to be escapable. Apart from that, what I like about these earphones is that the sound staging, which is basically how the sound feels in your head, it actually feels pretty wide for a pair of 800 rupee earphones. That's really, really good. And it's also got very, very good imaging as well. So basically all the instruments that are available in a song are separated very well. Again, I'm talking specifically from the perspective of an 800 rupee pair of earphones. Now essentially what happens when you have dual drivers is that the frequencies can be separated across two different drivers, and this means that you can get a little bit better imaging, and which is what exactly happens with this. Now, so for example, when you're listening to a song like Do I Wanna Know by the Arctic Monkeys, in the penultimate section of the song before the song ends, there are a lot of instruments that play, a lot of them, a ton of them. There's a lot of high frequencies, there's a lot of percussions, there's a lot of guitar, there's of course the chorus and the vocals as well. Now when all of that comes together, right, a lot of earphones in this price range struggle. They sound muddied. This one doesn't struggle as much as most other earphones do. It does a pretty damn good job, which is what I like about these earphones. Having said that, I am still very, very disappointed with the fact that Xiaomi went for a very high bass tuning. But if you like bass, and I know that a lot of people do, and if you like that boomy kind of bass, then this one works for you. I just wish that Xiaomi had spent a little bit more time tuning the sub bass. and instead just used a single driver and made it sound even better. But again, that's just me. I prefer dual drivers with balanced and with a balanced armature and a dynamic driver. But of course, that will become more expensive. Maybe Xiaomi might work on something like that in the future. So according to me, the sound is a solid, say, 3 out of 5. Like if I had to give it a rating, nothing more than that in my opinion. So yeah, so that was my review of these dual driver earphones. A lot of you guys are probably planning to pick it up. You can pick it up if you like a lot of if you like listening to a lot of bass music, because design wise it's incredible. Sturdiness, it feels really good. I think that these can last and they won't fray easily, so that's really nice. Plus you've got these magnetic housings, plus it won't tangle easily, so all of those are definitely advantages. And of course, if you like, again I'm coming to the same point, that if you like listening to a lot of bass heavy music, then this will work for you. I don't. I generally prefer a cleaner sound. And now if you want a cleaner, more analytical, more emphasized sound, which sort of gives more details in the trebles and the mids and gives you a little bit more room to breathe and sound airy, then I have a couple of other options for you. Now, one of the most important options that I would pick is the Focal Sense 100 TSI, and those are actually pretty good, but they have one particular problem that this one solves, is that they are not as sturdy and the build quality is not that great compared to Xiaomi's earphones. So if you want something that is more sturdier and you can take the sound signature, then this one is it. But if you want something that you can take care of and baby it but get better sound signature out of it, a little more cleaner, a little more open, then I would prefer something like the Focal Sense. Now there's also the Realme Buds 2, which is actually much cheaper than these, and I like the sound signature of the Realme Buds 2, but I think this is a little more defined and well refined comparatively, except for the fact that the bass is the thing that keeps annoying me over and over again. I don't know what you guys think, so do let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, this is Ershad from Mr. Phone signing off. Goodbye and Godspeed, my friends.